Hello, everyone. Welcome back to the channel. Today, I am joined by the wonderful EC or Ed Greaves. Thank you so much for joining me today, Ed.
Hey, no worries, Kate. Good to be here.
Absolutely. And I just want to say congratulations on everything so far with Spiffbo, because that is so exciting. And for anyone who doesn't know, these are the books we're going to be talking about today, or we are talking
I
about.
even I even brought my own from home.
There you go.
There are like a million kicking around my room, like various author copies and half finished ones, and they're just everywhere. I use them to like prop things up, and
Oh,
it's great.
that's excellent.
But yeah,
And then take them out when you
it,
wanna, like, just randomly leave it with a stranger.
yeah, use them around like public parks or yeah,
Yeah.
it's good fun. But I've got to say though, it weirds me out every time anyone says Spiffbo. Like for me, I read it
Oh,
as SPFBO, and you can tell when someone writes it if they write "an" before it, like "an Spiffbo"
oh,
or "an SPFBO nomination" or something. I'm always like, okay,
yes.
you can tell.
That's your tell.
Mm,
Well, congratulations again, and why don't you go
thank
ahead
you.
and tell us a little bit about your books here?
Righto. So I'm sure you probably already know if you're here, but it's Daughter of the Beast is the Spiffbo, the SPFBO finalist now, and it was my debut novel. It's a fantasy coming of age. It's kind of more on the darker side, so it's set in a like Slavic folklore inspired world. There are no human characters, and it follows a little girl who's captured by sort of dog people monsters, raiders, and they force her into a life of that. But over time, she comes to realize that she kind of likes it, and so it's her. I suppose you could call it like a villain origin story. It's
I
set like
love it.
in the but yeah, so being met with like well, I mean, it got through to the finals, and then I think my first review in the finals was not so good. So
Oh,
it
no.
seems a little yeah, it seems a little not controversial or polarizing, but it's definitely a book for a specific set of tastes. I think it's not the happy fun times coming of age or anything like that.
Right. So, if you had to peg a reader, that would best suit the taste of
Uh,
your book,
I
what
hate
kind of reader are you
I,
looking at?
yeah, I hate to use a super famous name, and especially given SPFBO. But if you liked like Mark Lawrence's Red Sister trilogy, that sort of thing, where there are
Okay.
it follows a young girl. It's all first person perspective as well, so that was quite a challenge writing that. Um, but yeah, it's sort of more her feelings about things. It's more of a character kind of story. So
Mm.
it's quite hard to describe and hard to do the what is it comping or whatever you compare it to titles, because it's like there are
Comparative
parts from
titles, yes.
yeah like parts from one thing. It's like the story from this, but then the characters from this. Back in the day, towards the start of the competition, someone described it as kind of like Mad Max almost, where
Oh,
there's a
neat.
real manic kind of vibe to the way that everybody is in that world, and
Okay.
yet at the same time somewhat joyful but dark. So yeah,
I got
quite
you.
hard to
That
describe.
I've once done a chat with Aaron S. Jones, and
Yeah,
he described his books as grimdark with a slice of hope, because it's
right.
not
Yeah,
completely grimdark, it's got a little bit of, hope to it, which grimdark definitely
yeah,
if
yeah.
you're going full grimdark, it does
I
not.
actually personally like it better when Grimdark does have that hope, because otherwise it's
Mm.
like I may as well just I don't know listen to My Chemical Romance or something and cry. It's just
Need a
it's so
pint of ice
depressing.
cream.
Yeah, exactly. Like yeah, that scene from Bridget Jones with the oh god, if you're old enough to get that reference.
There you go. We have quite a few people here with us. So, hello, Tim. We have Christopher as well. Thanks for stopping in. Ryan, there's so many. Thank you all for tuning in. And
Oh, no
while we're
worries.
saying some hellos, I would love to know how all this started for you. For let's say, for example, you've written stories, you've done artwork, you have such a wide scope of creativity to you. How did this all start?
Oh man, like my origin story, my villain origin story.
Yes, let's go
It's
for it. Let's
yeah, like right back in the day, as a little kid, I'm the middle of five kids, and I think after the first two, mum and dad were kind of like, oh, they're a little tired, and so they just put me in a playroom. I'd get all my hand-me-down toys from my brother, so that half of them would like be missing things or broken, or games would be missing pieces, and so I just have to come up with my own stuff. And I can't even be sure, and I'd have to ask my mum if some of the friends that I played those games with were even real. Um, but it was sort of like a creativity born of necessity. I think I needed to entertain myself, and so I'd just come up with fantastical worlds and like whimsical stories and whatnot. And then
Mm,
when I got into school, I was reading quite early as well. Mum and dad are quite big fantasy readers, so dad
okay.
would throw like he threw The Hobbit at me and Lord of the Rings when I was like 7 or something, and I'd have to sit in a chair reading chapters, and then he'd ask me about them to make sure that I hadn't just been skimming them. And
Oh
when it came to the
my gosh.
Tom Bombadil stuff in Lord of the Rings, I still to this day remember sitting there going like, I did read it, but like I have no idea
Oh
what
no.
happened, like what was this? But yeah, so it was because of that. Then when I got into school, I would I would write in my math classes. It's like my brain has this thing where if I'm supposed to do a thing, I do the opposite thing. I just can't help myself. So if I was in math, I'd write. If I was in English, I'd be drawing, and if I was in art, I'd just be staring out the window, talking to my friend. There was no point at which I actually did math. Um, but
Oh,
yeah,
of
so
course, it didn't cross over.
no, there was never. It wasn't like a closed loop. But yeah, so I just did all that, and then all the way through high school, I was still doing that. I'd write stories. I think I got like a little poem published in like I can't remember his name, someone Burroughs or something like that. Some New Zealand poet published like children's poems, and I was like, that's cool. You can actually do have your writing go somewhere. Um,
Yeah.
and back in the day in New Zealand in the 90s, we used to have these things called school journals where they'd collect up a bunch of stories or whatever and then publish them. And I got like a picture and a little blurb story, really short story about a dragon um, published, which was awesome. And so, yeah, then all from then on, I thought, well, at some point in the back of my mind, it was always like, if I can't stick at a job for long enough because I get woefully bored, I'll just write something and then see if I can get that published. Um,
Yeah.
and then I just didn't. I waited way too long. But yeah, so and then yeah, like all the rest of it, just drawing and all that sort of stuff was just like I just did it as a side thing for like forever. Yeah,
Nice. So
not the most inspiring end to my origin story, but it just kind of fizzles out. But yeah,
no,
it's just
I
background noise.
I love it though because you took a situation when you were young and made it into a creative experience. You found ways to entertain yourself. You didn't, sit in woe and, woe
Yeah,
was me. You made your own fun. And I think that's so important. I mean, especially, I mean, 5 siblings. My
yeah. We didn't
I
have like the
can
internet back then or anything, so I had to just entertain myself. So
with one child, I empathize with your parents.
yeah, I don't know what they were thinking, but the weirdest thing is, right, like, I'm oh, no, there's my older sister as well. I was gonna say I'm the only one in my family that doesn't have kids, but my older sister doesn't either, but then my brother has 5 of his own as well, and I'm like,
Oh, wow.
what is wrong with the Greaves?" Like, just the whole
Love
tribe.
children.
It just makes Christmas so damn expensive. It's so
Yeah.
annoying.
Yeah, well, memories.
Yeah, true, true.
Get-togethers are good memories. And, we have Ian here who says they just started Daughter of the Beast yesterday. I hope you're enjoying it.
I hope so too. It'll be really awkward if you don't.
So, part of that creativity, you talked about artwork, but you, have a passion for music as well. You compose
Yes,
music
yeah.
too. And as a music nerd, this is one topic I've been very excited to dive into a little bit.
Oh, no.
So sorry,
Oh, yeah.
everyone else.
Oh, it's fine.
I would
It's more my
love
cringy music history.
oh,
Oh, oh
well, we
god.
don't have to go too deep into it then.
No, it's alright.
But what ended up pulling you into music? Because drawing and music are 2 very different
Yeah.
creative outlets. So I'm really curious to was it an instrument you were forced to play? Was it something else entirely? Oh, we're frozen. So while we're waiting for Ed to come back, how's everyone doing?
Oh my goodness, I think we lost internet for a second there.
Oh, there you are. Yep. We got
Oh
you.
no. I told you this would happen. As
That's
soon as the
alright.
chat goes wild, it's like then the internet dies. I don't know why. So
It's
music,
all
how
good.
did I get into it, right? Mum's very musical. She I think she can play the trumpet, I think, or something. I don't know. She was musical. Dad's not. It's shocking how off key his singing is. You could play like the most basic beat and try to get him to clap his hands to it, and he'd be off. He'd be doing some weird polyrhythm. Um, but yeah, I didn't actually study music in school, and I can't
Okay.
read music. I tried, but it just didn't stick. It's
It's
so
hard.
frustrating. Yeah, and I'm really bad at practicing things. So if I had to sit in front of a piano and practice, I would just it wouldn't stick. But
Mm.
I could hear a song and I could go on the piano and like with a little bit of effort work out what keys they were playing. And
Yeah.
it's almost like every video game that I played since I was a little kid and whatnot. The music stuck in my mind. Like
Yeah.
it's annoying to my flatmates and friends, like that I'll just go, "Hey, this piece of music. Oh yeah, that's off whatever movie. Here are the lyrics to this entire song, even in different languages."
Oh my gosh,
But
you're a walking
I don't know why.
encyclopedia.
It just happens. It's really frustrating because like they just get stuck in my head like earworms, but it's like my own fault. Um, but yeah, so I didn't study it, and then I was really bored, and I was in Hamilton, which is like a kind of mediocre city, and it's not really a city in New Zealand. Um, and I just thought, you know what? Why don't I study music and actually learn how to do it? But then I realized when I signed up for the course that you actually have to kind of already know what you're doing first. But yeah, then through that, I found some dudes that wanted to be in a band, and I'd kind of sort of played drums in high school on and off. So
Okay.
I just got myself a drum kit and then taught myself to play that and was the drummer in a band. It was the band. If you guys want to look it up, there is a music video. There's a music video called "The Casino Riot," and the song is called "Aside from Me," and I'm in that, and it's very embarrassing. But feel free to look at it 'cause it's quite funny. But it got played in New Zealand. On We don't have much of a metal scene here, but it got played quite a bit. Um, yeah, it was really good. And then I just saw Nick in the comments, Hamilton, mediocre city. It's true. He knows. Um, but yeah, so I did that, and then I had GarageBand on this very computer, which is from like 2009, and
Yes.
it's so old. I was just randomly using it to play out the drums in the drum track to send as demos, and I was
Okay.
like, this is really fun. What if I just put like some piano in here or like some guitar or whatever? And so I pirated a whole bunch of music libraries from the university. I suppose it's not really piracy. I just blatantly stole it from the university of that, and then installed them and just made songs. And so I put together
Okay.
songs, and I never really thought of making money off it or anything. So I just
Mm.
give them to people to use in um, indie video games just randomly. Like I'd like host them up or
Yeah.
post them and say stuff. And then from that, that I suppose lead into one of the questions you actually had got asked about video games is that then people
Mhm.
were like, why don't you just like you can draw and you can write and you can make music. Why don't you just like make a video game? And then I was
There you
like, I
go.
suppose I better. And then I had to learn coding on top of that. So
Oh my
it's like,
gosh.
yeah, it's like my creativity ends up being this like vortex that just pulls me from one thing to the next. And I never really finished many projects. This is probably the closest to success I've made from it.
Right.
Um, the
Well,
band fizzled out because of the usual lead singer dramas. But
oh, okay.
yeah, it was good
Well,
while it lasted.
that's just it. Music, those kind of experience, they're good while they last. Bands very rarely stick together for very
Oh my goodness,
long
yes,
too.
yeah,
So, it really sounds like your creative experience and everything that kind of you've done and comes together was just an avalanche. Once
yeah.
one snowball went, the whole mountain came
Yeah,
down.
really, really is yeah, it's kind of frustrating because well, actually, no, it's kind of a blessing in that I never get writer's block. People always talk about that online. And I
Oh,
think writing's
interesting.
always been the core thing that's run through everything. Like even with the songs, my favorite part was the lyrics, with
Mm,
making video games. It was writing little item descriptions or, all that sort of thing. And so with that, if I feel like I'm a little stuck on an idea, I'll just go do something else. I'll just spend like a whole day drawing. And I think I'm fairly typical ADHD in that I have the brain all over the place, but then I'll get hyper focused on a thing and I'll just forget to eat. I'll draw for
oh
like
my
24 hours
gosh.
straight, and so as a result, I never really have those issues, which is really frustrating for other people to hear. Kind of frustrating to have. Can't focus either, but yeah, it's
Well,
really handy.
I imagine, yeah, because you do need breaks and you need to take care of
Yeah,
yourself too in
my
between
breaks are
and
actually just my day job. To be fair,
oh my gosh. So you
just
go
kind of
from one job to basically another
yeah.
consistently.
Yeah, like it's one of those things where people say, do a thing you love for a living, and then it doesn't feel like work.
Mm.
And it's kind of I think that's really true. Like, but then I would like to have the money to do that. So I
Kind of
just go to work
important,
and
yeah.
yeah.
Well, we have a question here too with from Ryan. Do you get Australia's metal scene?
We get the tiniest
Okay.
sliver of Australian stuff, and it's usually if it's already got into the mainstream, then it will come and filter into here. So we have to go look it up. I'm terrible at
Okay.
remembering band names. That's my one thing as well. So I could rattle
Mhm.
off some bands or songs, and it's like I can't remember them. But it goes like, yeah. So we do get
Oh,
some. But
can only
yeah,
remember so much.
yeah. It's like I'll sing you the song, but I won't tell you who did it.
Okay. So I actually I'm gonna take us back a little bit because you
Okay, sorry.
mentioned indie. No, 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 it's all good. You mentioned indie horror games.
Yes.
That's what you've done as well. You've developed them.
Yeah.
In terms of that experience, how did you find that? Because you had to learn how to code. You were applying so many formats of creativity. How did that work out for you? And is it something that you continue doing or go back to?
So yeah, the reason why the game's not released that I made a demo for it. I had like a whole bunch of stuff done, all the assets and everything, and I was trying to find people to work with to do things that I just couldn't be bothered doing myself, and
Mm,
it kind of all stopped because I started writing more seriously. Um, but it's one of those things where I find it really therapeutic to have. I learned C sharp, which is kind of I suppose if you're a
yes.
coder, you'd be like, "This is baby mode," but
Yeah.
yeah, like I tried using was it Unreal Engine with the plug and play coding, and my
Yes.
brain was like, no, no,
Yeah.
just go to the Matrix, man. And so I learned to do that, and I really like it because I had to learn what quaternions were and like vector math and stuff, and
Oh my
it's
gosh.
like I said, I'm not good at math. I never was. My dad's a scientist, and so I should be, but I'm just not. Like I can do calculations from at the supermarket. I can work out how
Mhm.
much cash I get, but that's the limit. And so I had to do all that. And then I found it really nice because it's like a different part of my brain than the creative part. So I'd spend those 24 hours drawing endless versions of a sprite for an animation. And then I'd find it really nice to have a break from that and go and figure out why the hell they weren't turning around correctly because I hadn't
Right.
scripted the vector math correctly. It was really fun. I'd sleep,
Oh,
do the creative one day, and then the coding, boring stuff the next.
oh my
But yeah,
gosh.
it was one of those things where I sort of fell into it just because I was hanging around on grotty parts of the internet and someone suggested it, and so I did it. I tried it, and it was for a game jam, and I just did some coding and some art for I can't even remember the name of it. It's a Russian name. Sorry, I'll probably be able to find it and then link it on my Twitter. But yeah, just a game jam game, and then I was like, I can do
Okay.
this myself. So I started doing it. But yeah, my game never actually got released. It's still on my computer, sitting around.
Is it
Um,
something you would go back to and finish to release, do you think?
yeah. I think the one I started with is a little too edgy. It doesn't
Okay.
actually really fit my own views or vibes. I think I was
Okay.
trying to make a horror game, right? And I was trying to
Right.
make it as like horrific and whatnot and depressing as possible. And I'm not that kind of person. So like I like horror movies, but I like
Yeah.
them because they're funny. Like they it's fun figuring out what's going to happen, and it's not what it
Right.
is like. But yeah, then I started making a video game for my actual book as well. Like I modeled the character and I got it all working using the
Oh,
same code,
wow.
so it's transferable. And that's probably what I will actually do is just make a
Right.
little short adventure video game, kind of like the old Resident Evils where you go and you collect an item and then you go use it
Yes.
somewhere and then unlocks another area. Yeah,
Yeah.
really
Little
fun to do.
little main quest with little tiny side quests in
Yeah,
between.
and like looping back to where you just went, so you're like, oh, I
Yeah.
got to the other side of the door. Yeah.
Yeah, there you go, secrets.
Yeah, but then that's the problem with that as well as then I had to teach myself how to do 3D modeling as well, which was like a whole
Right.
other.
So is that a completely different software that you would end up using?
Yeah, so I was using Unity for the actual game itself, and
Okay.
then I'd use, um, I think it's Blender is the free one. I really don't like paying for stuff, so it was like Blender was the free 3D animation and modeling software, and then you import the models of the characters and the objects into Unity and build everything,
Oh,
and then I'll
wow.
script in like a free whatever it's called, Visual Studio, I think.
Yeah.
Mm. So it's
My
good fun.
gosh.
Like, and it's one of those things. I think I actually shared a video of the game I was making for Daughter of the Beast on my Twitter. Just had little Zintail walking around and
Oh,
doing stuff.
really?
Yeah, I think she just walks past something and then stands there and does some little like animations when she's walking around. Like, yeah.
That's awesome. So now we're gonna have to go dig through Twitter,
Oh god,
find that.
post some inane stuff. I try really hard not to get involved in any like political discussion or any of the drama, but I just post such inane rubbish. I
You know
feel for the
what?
people who follow me on there.
It's fun though. We need a break from
Mm.
drama. We need a break from all that stuff. I stay out of all those things as well. So I think bringing a bit of humor, positivity, absolutely. Bring it
Yeah,
on.
for me, it's the fact that it's like social media, right? It should be
Mm.
social, not
Yeah.
media, I guess. Don't quote me on that. That was terrible.
We're gonna quote that, put it at the end of your book.
Yeah, it should be social, not the media. Yeah.
Exactly. So, aside from The Hobbit and The Lord of the Rings, were there any other books or authors that you found that really helped to influence your own writing and your own stories?
Uh, I think it's kind of hard because I don't read many books. I'm really, really slow at reading books, but I'm fast at reading words, if that makes sense. Like I'll blaze through a book, but I'll read like 3 books a year.
Right.
And so the most of them are from when I was younger. The most recent stuff has either been indie or Mark Lawrence. Um, and prior to that, it would have been David Gemmell. A lot of his stuff.
Mm,
I have a thing for. I don't even know if you call it grimdark because they are quite grim when you go back and read them. But there's always
mhm.
that element of hope. Like there's always a story about a hero doing something heroic, and it's
Yes.
kind of like Howard. What's his first name? Is it Robert? Robert E. Howard? Conan. You know,
Yeah. Oh, okay.
yeah.
Yes,
So
yes.
the OG Conan stuff. I really like
Yeah.
that. They're written in a really weird way. Like if you go back and read them
Mm,
now, like the language, I guess it's a product of its time. But I really
right.
like the fact that it feels almost as though the narrator is in the world using the language that the people in the world would speak, even though
Mm,
they're distanced. So I think I kind of did that, or at least I'm doing that with the third person stuff I write. Like you could easily just put quote marks around the start and the end of the whole book and have it be someone in that world narrating. Um,
okay. Yeah.
so I think that informed my writing, I suppose, the really early stuff.
Nice.
But most of the stuff that I read when I was like a teenager and throughout high school, I read a lot of those Dragonlance books.
Oh,
Um,
yes.
yeah, I always
Yeah.
like those, and also David Eddings. Is he the one that did Gorion and Polgara's Sorceress? I'm so
Sounds
bad at names.
familiar.
I can't even remember the name of the book, but it's about it's like a farm boy that goes the classic farm boy goes on a heroic journey story. I don't
Oh,
know. I
yes.
really like that. So my book, it's full of cliches. Like it starts with a burning village. It's the most cliche thing in the world. But I think that's because there was a massive period where I just didn't read anything. So I had no idea what a trope was or what was trending or what you shouldn't write. I just wrote it, and then I
That's
was like,
great,
oh
though.
crap. Yeah, people always say like writers are supposed to be well read, but the truth is I am really not. Like
Well,
I'm so bad at it.
part of the reason why I love reading indie books is because so many of you guys are taking those tropes, flipping them on their head, doing something completely different, making it unpredictable or unique, and that's a huge reason why I love
Yeah,
reading indie because you do it differently. You don't follow a map. You take your own
yeah,
journey with it.
yeah. You can have those risks done. You don't have
Yeah.
to follow a
Yeah, you
formula.
write it how you want, publish it how you want. Get it out there.
Yeah. Yeah, my next book will be published on billboards outside shops, just
There you go.
a chapter at a time. But no, yeah, I think it's one of those things where there's got to be a balance, and I'm not quite doing it right. Like, so I'll read a book and I'll go, "Oh crap, this is so much better than what I was just thinking." It'll be in the same vein. Oh, I forgot
Right.
to mention Redwall. Redwall, that's a big one from when I was a kid.
Yes.
You know, I I love Redwall, but I've said it so many times now. It's going to become a saying of mine, but it is anti-rat propaganda. It's blatant. It's so unfair. Well, they call them vermin. It's just not fun. And yet the
Yes.
main characters are mice. But yeah, so
What are
yeah, I
you
read
gonna
a lot of
do?
those. Yeah, well, what I'm doing is writing a story where the main characters are the rats. So,
Oh, interesting.
but yeah, it's one of those things where I think I read a lot and then I stopped for the longest time, and then when I really got serious about writing, I forgot that I probably should have caught up with where the trends were and that sort of thing, just for some
Right.
context at least. So
Okay.
I'm desperately, rather slowly doing that now.
Well, hey, I think it's important to keep in mind too, you don't have to get through a huge backlog of books.
Yeah. Oh,
Even for
believe me, my
myself.
backlog's like 4,000 books.
Yeah, exactly. There's so many books that I would need to catch up on, and I
Yeah.
likely never will because then I would never read anything new either. So
Yeah. Yeah, I
it's
really liked what you said around Christmas time, I think it was, when you said that you were looking at maybe taking it more slow and more
yeah.
based on your mood and stuff. I think that's really important to do, you know?
It is. I've found I get the best reading experience out of it, because I'm picking up a book, I'm reading it when I'm fully in the mode for it, and I'm not pushing myself to get through certain scenes or get through certain parts of it just for the sake of finishing it. And
Yeah.
I struggle with DNFs. I'm like not finishing books, so
Yeah.
that's a huge aspect for me as well.
Yeah, you get racked with guilt. You're like, "But what if that last 3 pages was
Exactly.
just so good, like
Well,
sublime? What
I do
if?"
hang on, yes. But I have had experiences where the first half of a book didn't work for me,
Yeah.
and a good example of that is, Ken Liu's, Grace of Kings.
Yes,
I
yeah.
I struggled with that first
I've
half.
I've heard that, yeah.
Yeah, and then the second half was stellar,
Hmm.
and if I put it down halfway through, so now I'm paranoid.
Yeah. Yeah, I have actually heard that about my book in that, like, people either really liked the first half and didn't so much like the second, or they didn't like the first and liked the second, or whatever, whichever way around it is. Um,
Yes.
so I really hope that's not the case and you like, "Oh." But yeah, I mean, that's the thing. I think, like, as well, if you have, or at least from what I've seen in indie, people write books over a really long period of time, and
Mhm.
so I've noticed there are a few books that I've read where it feels as though they wrote it in two different mindsets or something, or like that maybe they wrote the first part earlier, or even the second part earlier, and then went and did the other part, and you can tell there's like almost a different style of writing, which is something
Interesting,
I don't
yeah.
see a lot. It's not mentioned a lot, but you can see it in some of those, and especially longer series.
No, that's true. Yeah, because even there are some debuts that I've read where the beginning is, a certain style, and then it just progressively gets better and better as you go through the book,
Yeah.
in certain aspects. So that's a good point.
So the pro
Yeah.
tip that we can learn from that is that you write books backwards, and then by the time that you get to your rubbish writing, you've already hooked them. They've already paid their money. It's too late, no
There
refunds.
there you go. And you know what? Just to make writing just a little less complicated.
Yeah, right out of order, right backwards.
Yeah. So I actually do wanna dive into, Josh's comment here where he says,
Oh yes,
"You see, you gotta talk about the Pirate Redwall," and I wanted to ask you about this because you tweeted out that you were listening to Pirate Shanties and one of my
yes,
favorite a cappella singers, the, bass voice, and they do a phenomenal
so
job with
so
their
good.
music.
Yeah.
So can you tell us a little bit about what this Pirate Redwall work in peace is?
Yeah, I think I've got to give some context. Is that when I first started primary school in England, I can't remember what year it was that you start. Like, I think I was
Mm.
either like 5 or 6 years old or something, and the
Okay.
teacher asked me what I wanted to be when I grew up, and I'd just been sitting with my dad, I think, playing Monkey Island, and I was like, I want to be a mighty pirate, like the main
Mhm.
character from my song. And the teacher was like, "There's no such thing as pirates nowadays. Sorry, like choose something
Oh.
else." Which is like a terrible thing to say to a little kid. Like, she should not have been teaching us. She probably had a bad day, and she was sick
Oh,
of
no.
these silly inane answers. Like, I want to be a unicorn. I want to be a pirate. But I was
Yeah.
like, and for a while, I was like, well, I could just like move to, I don't know, is it Somalia or something where they do pirate? I could probably do that, but it's not the same. So, so I kept it. I love pirate stuff all my life. I've got like pirate tattoos and
Yeah.
just pirate things throughout my life. And I thought, you know what, I should probably write a pirate book. I try to put them in everything I write. Um, and so I thought I wrote out like a, what is the term for it? It's not a plan. It's like a goal sheet,
Outline?
like what I wanted to achieve by it. Yeah, and I kind
Yeah.
of thought I need it to be all the stuff that I like about things like Pirates of the Caribbean, Monkey Island,
Mm.
Black Sails, I think it's called, the TV show, and none
Yeah.
of the stuff I don't, and then combine it with something that makes me feel that childhood joy,
Mm.
but even as an adult. And I was like, it's Redwall. Redwall always had like such a like there's something about cute anthropomorphic animals doing heroic stuff that just really
Yes.
gets it. It just works so well for me. It's like, yeah, and so I wanted to combine those, and then yeah, I wanted to redeem rats in the eyes of the world.
There you go.
Yeah, and so I started it. Yeah, and I a while back, I think I was playing like Halo or something, and my brother called me Captain Captain Wiggy McDowell, I think it was, just out of for whatever I can't even remember why, and that name
Yeah.
stuck in my mind. So I played like Sydney as pirates, and I always called my captain that. And I was like, I need a character that's called that, but then I needed a reason for him to be called that, and it's the silliest name. And so I was like, what if he's just like some random kid that works at like a wig maker's shop, and
Oh my
a
gosh.
pirate captain comes in for the best wig ever, and then like somehow ends up on an adventure. And then I watched the 1980s Transformers movie for like the 9,000th time. I've also got a
Mm.
Transformers tattoo. It's like my
Oh,
two
wow.
things. And I was like, wow, there's a really cool story there of like the big planet coming to eat their planet and the two factions fighting, and then they
Mm.
have to kind of put their war on hold a little bit to deal with this external threat. And I was like, but what if they had to team up to take him down, which was an opportunity I think they missed. So I
Mm.
was like, what if I steal that and put that into my world, just blatantly copy their plot? But then I was
Yeah.
like, you can't really have a giant planet. And then I thought, well, it's little animals, right? So what about
Yeah.
just like a really big animal that eats little animals? So I looked up what lives in
Predators, yeah.
the Caribbean, and it's saltwater crocodiles. They're still
Oh.
finding fossils of these massive saltwater crocodiles.
Oh,
So I was like, what about
wow.
that? Yeah. And so then it all just kind of built itself in my brain. And
That's
yeah, I've got a
amazing.
couple of chapters in. I released them on my website. I put one up on my website behind that, the worst riddle ever. Um, and then, yeah, put the little password in and they can read it.
Oh, I love it. Okay, well, if anyone wants to take a look at that, you said it's on your website?
Yeah, I can't remember if I linked the actual part that says where to find it on the website, so I'll
Oh,
probably have to
okay.
do that. But yeah,
Well,
so
we'll have a link in the description below, and as well, all the other links to, Ed's
yeah,
stuff will be there too, so definitely check those out. But that sounds
yeah,
amazing, and I love that you just took us through your entire thought process for that in a matter of what, 2 minutes?
yeah. I mean, that should
It's
be the elevator
fantastic.
pitch. It's like ripping off two things I liked as a child, combining them together, and making something not quite as good as either.
There you go, and, I wonder if you'll end up, giving a little cameo to that teacher
Yeah,
somewhere.
I should dedicate it to her, Mrs. Milne,
Yeah.
her name was. I remember that for my life. I'll take it to the grave, unless I finally let it go with this.
There
This
maybe
is a redemption.
you'll have to finish the series and find out.
Yeah, that's the plan.
I love it. So I wanna talk about Bo's comment here because the covers for your current
Oh,
series
yes.
here is phenomenal. Did you do the covers?
Yeah, I did. Yeah.
That's amazing, and just so all of you can enjoy this with us, just look at this artwork. That is amazing, and you did some
Thank you.
doodles on the inside as well,
I did,
right?
yeah. Yeah, there's one in each book.
I'm just
I don't
gonna
know why I put whichever ones. I really did. I probably should change the one on the front because I realized there's like a little bit of nipple visible, I think, on the dog lady, which is it's kind of weird.
should am
Because
I allowed to
originally
show that?
yeah, no, it should be fine. Originally, I was like, well, they wouldn't wear clothes, but then I was like, I probably should give her some. But I'm sure there are people out there who might be into it, so cool. Buy my books.
You're gonna have to do a full illustration set.
Yeah, yeah. I was hoping to do an illustrated version, but man, it would take so long. And even like formatting them,
Mm.
because I format them myself and stuff, and so putting the images in so that the text flows properly and blah blah blah. It was such a pain. So
Oh my
just one
gosh.
for each book, that'll do. But
Well,
yeah.
you nailed it out of the park with these. You did a
Oh, thank
great
you.
job. So I do wanna dive into it a little bit. What was the main inspiration for you with this trilogy? And I know you said talked a little bit about the Morley Gray character, but was
Mm.
there something that you just wanted to snowball with the pirates in Redwall? So was there
Well,
something similar for
there's a
this?
similar wacky story for this is that I played Dungeons and Dragons, and there was a character. I think I've already told the story before. There was a character that we came upon who was like an elf, I think, or something. But they were like like a playable race, and they were
Okay.
amongst all like orcs and goblins and that sort of thing, right? And you always see it
Mhm.
in like things like Baldur's Gate 3. There's like them working alongside these monsters or whatever, and you're like, why would they even do that? Like, there's no reason that these because these people are somewhat civilized or whatever, and these other ones are like completely like unruly, murderous monsters. And then I
Mm.
was like, but what if that character? And we fixated like as players do in Dungeons and Dragons. The poor DM had no name for this character or anything, and we fixated on it. And I was like, what is the reasoning for this? I think it was actually a dude in the um, in the campaign. But I was like, why are they working together? And we were asking all these questions, and they were just maybe they were raised by them. And so I thought that
Oh.
would be a really cool concept. And then obviously I'd rolled up a character. It was actually Zintail, but I'd done it entirely using like a random table. I like roll the dice, and it was like I got I think like a half elf or something or a gnome, and then I was like, and then I got a woman, and then I got what does she look like? And it's like red hair, and I did all that, and it was like randomly generated her, and then I played her for like a whole campaign, and it
Oh
was like a
wow.
barbarian, and it was just the funniest thing. And so that stuck in my mind as well. And then ages later, I was just like, I should probably write like something a bit more seriously, like try to write it. And I was taking the train to work, and it was so boring. It was like an hour each way,
Oh my
and I just
gosh.
sitting there, and I had my phone, and I just opened a Google Doc, and I started just writing. Um, and as I was writing, originally I was just going to do it like human, set in
Mm.
like I always did want to do it Slavic, set in like say medieval, not Russia, gets captured by some sort of forest beasts or whatever, and then raised by them,
Mm.
just because of that. And then as I was writing it, it all kind of clicked in place. The fact that they were the Russian Slavic folklore creatures like the Kikimori and Domovoy and stuff, which I realized I didn't actually use enough of their actual Russian names in the first book because I'd given it to some readers early on and they couldn't understand. They were like, well, you don't ever really explain
Oh,
these terms.
I
And I
see.
did actually sillily listen to a little too much feedback, which I think did make it a little bit
Mm.
worse. But yeah, it just kind of merged together, a similar sort of thing.
Nice. And I mean, that's a growing pain, right?
Yeah,
As an author, is learning what to listen to, what to stick with your gut on. I want to go back to there's no humans
mm,
in this at all. Was this a choice that you wanted to make offhand? Was it just how it happened?
it's
Um,
yeah,
yeah.
it's kind of half and half. So to begin with, I had written it as just humans and then monsters and two kind of empires. Just to echo, like I traveled to Ukraine with my partner at the time and um, loved it there, and I was always planning on like I wanted to go back. So like I learned a bit of Russian and all the sort of thing. I was going to go. Obviously can't now. Um, yeah. And then like we broken up and everything, but I was still like I really wanted to keep that cultural stuff in there, and I'd pester her about it. I'd ask her all these questions. She'd be like, "I
Oh
don't
my
want to talk
gosh.
about it." Like she hated being like
Oh
she was
no.
born in Ukraine, but like raised in Russia, and then families from
Right.
Ukraine. So it was this weird like mix, and she didn't like being from there, especially in New Zealand. There's a lot of negative stereotypes around like Slavic women here,
Hmm.
and so she would hide that fact. And there was me going like, "Teach me Russian. Let's see how they go. What do they mean when they say this? Like, what is this for?" And so
Complete
she got sick
opposite
of it,
end.
and so we broke up.
Oh,
But I got some books out of it. No,
oh,
yeah, so, no, we broke up because I was a terrible boyfriend. But
oh my
um,
gosh.
we yeah, she would like walk me through things, and I was like, I'm going to keep that in there. But then I got thinking, and I was like, it's really hard to, and it's cool when people have picked up on this. It's really hard to make you root for a character who's not a nice person when you
Mm,
are, the same person as them. Essentially, we're humans, they're humans, and they're doing
yes.
things that we now would see as deplorable because, like, they take slaves and they do raiding and all
Yeah.
this sort of stuff, right? And if you see that, and you see a character doing that, even if
Mm,
like if you had a character set in Rome, you probably wouldn't think anything of it. But if it's like fully made up and you don't have the
mm,
context for it, you're gonna immediately dislike them from the get
mhm.
go. And so what
Yeah.
I wanted to do was have it so these characters, these creatures and stuff, they do stuff that really we should hate them for. But by the end of it, you're on their team and you're rooting for them. But I also wanted to make it so that even the people they're fighting against are also kind of equally not pleasant either. So that you can't really root. There's no obvious good guys, and none of them are human. So you don't have that immediate connection with one or the other group. Because if it was all like goblins or whatever, and they were all against humans, even if the main character was goblin, you'd be able to identify with the antagonist just because they're human and you're
Mm.
human. And so I wanted to cut that. And yeah, some people have picked up on that, which is really rad because like it was I gave it some thought, but then it just sort of happened and I was like, yeah, this is the plan. It gives
That
me free reign to just be an absolute dick to characters and stuff without worrying about the fallout.
Someone
I
turn
hope
that
that
into a
doesn't get
meme.
demonetized. Yeah, yeah. Wait, do I have to
No.
censor the D word on YouTube? Like, I'm never sure what the language
Oh,
content
it
algorithm will say.
the language aspect is mostly algorithm.
Yeah,
My channel's not monetized, so just to make sure the video doesn't get,
oh,
inhibited in any way.
yeah, age restrict it. They probably
Yeah.
should. No child should listen to me. Age
Well,
restrict it.
I think it's a really interesting route, how you did that without doing the humans, and the reason that you
Mm,
explained, you're giving readers a chance to see it as a third party perspective
yeah, like
of
fresh
both
eyes.
groups and make their own choices. And you're right, it's hard to make a character that is not always great and doesn't
Mm,
make the right choices, because I've come across so many books too where the character is quite unlikable in
yeah,
many
yeah,
ways. They make terrible decisions, they do deplorable things, and when I look at reviews and I see, and I've read them myself, most common, it's a 50-50 bag of,
yes.
"Could not stand this person," to "Love the representation."
Yeah, yeah. The way, like, I cheated a little by having it first person perspective. So Zintail is like she's a Kimura, so she's obviously a little bit more biased towards them, thinking they're the best, and then she gets captured by the Volcari, so she thinks they're the best. But and so she'll use slurs that they use against her own former people, just because that's the way she's raised, and it doesn't really understand the context and stuff. Um, but I tried to write it because it's from her perspective. She sees herself obviously as like making great choices and being right and all that sort of thing. So I do cheat by having the narrative tell you that she or show you a favorable light. But I went back and read them a while back just because it's been long enough since I'd written them, and I was like, I'm gonna go read it. And by the end of the third book, I was like, she's such a dingus. Like, she's so stupid. Like, she's an absolute brainlet. But like, I found it really endearing, and I'm like, how many? I
Mm.
don't know if there are many books where you have a main character who's so utterly stupid, but like doesn't make dumb decisions necessarily, but is just dumb. I found it really fun to do. But if
Oh,
people
okay.
hate her, that's more than justified.
Well, I think that's a great reason to read and find out.
Yeah, there's a plug.
There you go. So we have a question here from Timothy. Do you
Oh,
think gnomes are underrepresented in fantasy?
well, yeah, and I'm surprised how many other people do as well. So I was in Dom's Discord, like when they were doing their read along. I snuck in just to see how they were reading it for Spitfire. And I was really unsure what the rules around like interacting with the judges were and all that sort of thing, because it's like you don't want to be like friends or whatever. It's kind of inescapable, I suppose, in some regard. But a lot of the comments were like they really liked the character Phobos Lend. He's a little gnome, and right at the start of the book, he tries to help her escape her captivity. And so many of the comments were, "You better not kill Phobos. Like, you better not kill him. Like, is he coming back?" And like, I'd had like people would DM me on Twitter saying like, "He's amazing. Like, can you write a book about him or whatever?" And I was like, I love gnomes. I just love the idea of like a little, just a little dude, just doing normal people stuff. That's like he's so tiny, and he's like, but he's a morally grey guy as well, but kind of whimsical. And he smokes a pipe, and he like, yeah. I kind of based him on it's David the gnome actually, but he's not got a white beard.
I love that the first thing you got was, "Do not dare. Do not touch this
Yeah,
character.
don't kill him. Don't kill him. He's
Leave
too
him."
precious. Yeah.
That's brilliant. And actually, I wanted to bring up Bo's comment here. Not being well read just means you haven't been brainwashed into how it's supposed to be done. There you go.
Yeah, yeah, but I don't know that logic applies because it's like, wearing pants, right? There are certain things you kind of do want to be brainwashed into doing the right way.
Gotta take it with a grain of
Yeah,
salt, is what it
but no,
is.
that is, I think, something that I do find is quite refreshing because it does mean I can like I can discover all those things that are in the norms because I've missed out. Like I literally didn't know what a trope was until I joined SPFBO and people were talking about tropes, and I'm like, what the hell is a trope? That's the stupidest word. Like it's a type of fish or something. And they're like, "Look, it sounds like it should be." And
Tripe,
yeah,
yeah.
yeah. And I was like, "Oh, okay." It's the, like, what I would have called it, like, conventions or something, like, cliches? I don't know. And yeah, it's kind of funny to see how many of those, like, if there's that Wikipedia or page or whatever, and it's, like, all the tropes listed out on, like, a book or
Yes.
whatever, and I'm like, "Man, mine would be, like, every single entry on that." Like, it's terrible. Yeah,
Uh,
that's good fun.
and we have a few more comments. I'm sorry, I'm catching up with
Oh,
everyone
no,
as
yeah.
well.
I couldn't actually get the comments working on here so that I could reply to them, but I'd be, like, reading them.
Oh,
I'm reading them, guys. I'm just, like, projecting my thoughts back at you.
there you go. Saltwater crocodiles are actual nightmare fuel.
Yeah, yeah, and they legit do cry. It's like a salt gland. They
Oh,
evacuate
wow.
excess sodium via their eyeballs. So do birds, apparently. It's really weird.
Oh,
I went
uh,
down a rabbit hole.
did you
I
ever?
want yeah, like, I wanted my, fantasy pirate rat buccaneer book to be as accurate to the
Oh
yeah,
my gosh, yeah, that's quite the detail to know, the things you learn
yeah.
researching.
And they're like crocodile tears. It's like, well, they actually are a thing.
Yeah, and, Caden says, "One Piece has me
Yeah.
permanently on the pirate train,"
I was hoping
and
that there'd be a big pirate revival as well that I can, like, ride that,
there you go.
hopefully.
Go with the trends.
Yeah.
Yeah, oh my gosh, you guys are having a wonderful time in the chat, loving it.
Yeah. Dare I look.
We'll find we'll catch up, but in the
Yeah.
meantime, while I'm going through and filtering, I would love to dive in and talk a little bit about a concept in your world building that you talked about called stitches. And as
Oh,
spoiler free
yes.
as you can you give us just a little rundown of what that is?
Yeah. So, all of the chapters are, well, the parts of the book's broken into stitches, and I do a little stitch on each one. That's based on, so the culture of the dog people, wolf people, hyena people, the Volcari. They are kind of based a little bit on um, pre-Orthodox Christian and pre-Christian Slavic, like the tribes that went in between Russia and Ukraine. So
Mm,
if you look up Ukrainian Vyshyvanka, which I legit misspelt for the title of the trilogy in the first place, it's Vyshivka is Ukrainian word for stitching, like embroidery. Um,
okay.
the the Volcari, they do Vyshyvanka, which is stitching your clothes, but the Russians, they do what's called rushnik. I hope I'm getting that right. And it's like they would do like a sash type thing, which tells a story. And I think most often they would give it to a woman, or the woman would do it herself for like a wedding thing, and
Mm.
it would capture like her growing from like childhood to adulthood, and it was like a gifted
Oh,
thing.
wow.
And so I thought it was a really neat concept. And truth be told, I'm a little sick of when you read Slavic stuff, it just being like Baba Yaga or
Yes.
the what is the Ice Queen, or those ones. I'm
Mhm.
like and Rusalka, like the swamp ladies that drown you if you go too close. And I'm like,
Yes.
they're great, but there's so much more to the actual culture than just the critters. And so I
Mhm.
took the critters, used their names, but then changed almost everything about them. But I kept the culture of the actual people that lived there. Um, and the stitch
Okay.
thing, dividing your life up into a series of stitches like a pattern, is
Mm.
something that they used to do in the early medieval period. Like the Kievan Rus did it. I think they might have actually brought that from Scandinavia or something like that,
Oh,
and then it
wow.
became a thing that Slavic people did as well. Or the Slavic tribes already did it, and then when they came down, they took it and took it back to Scandinavia. So there's a lot of like you'll see
Mm.
Norwegian or whatever, I think it's Denmark and whatnot. They have similar sort of places that they stitch on, and they're supposed to be places that protect you or whatever.
Oh,
And
interesting.
yeah, and I just really wanted to capture that vibe, like the parts of your life being stitched into a pattern. And if you stitch it yourself, it's not really a spoiler, but there's a line in one of the books, I think the second one, where the explanation is that the act of stitching it is the magic that you instill into this thing, and so it
Mm.
will have all your emotions captured, and it's a good way to like get them out, but also to imbue your visible recollection of your life's journey with what you were feeling at the time. Yeah,
Absolutely.
so it sort of
Oh.
became the central thematic, I suppose, thing of the book.
I love it, I love it.
Yeah.
It you go down so many rabbit holes, but I love the attention to detail that you put to it and the thought, like, the consideration and care you put into the details.
Yeah, thank you. It's one of those things where, like, I get super nerdy about that, but then I go and ruin it by just changing it completely. It's like I wanna reference the truth and then just change it to suit the story or whatever. But the one
Yeah,
thing I won't do that with, though, is, like, armor and weaponry. Like, I keep that as accurate as possible because I can't stand it in movies when someone, like, stabs a dude right through and it's like he's, like, wearing armor, and I'm like, I
right.
can't even cut a cucumber without, like, a full wind up. Like, there's no way you're gonna be, like, right through a dude.
Yes.
But yeah, so it's like other than that, like I'll mix it up a little, but it's still based in like actual like medieval history.
Very nice. Well, you should make that cucumber, example a reference in a book somewhere,
Yeah,
in the
Captain's
pirate
cutting
one.
cucumbers. I'll have to make a little sea shanty about Captain Cook cutting cucumbers and
There you
his wee
go.
twists.
And a huge love to, Caden here. In the chat, he's gotten a buddy read
No
of
way. My
Daughter
man,
Organized.
kickstarted
Absolutely amazing.
Elegy of a Fragmented Vineyard, right? Did I get
Yes,
that right?
yes.
Yeah. That's so rad, dude. I'm so stoked for you.
Absolutely. Congrats on the
Yeah,
milestone so
and
far.
apologies that, like, New Zealand money is probably only gonna end up being, like, $3.50 US, even though it was, like, my life savings.
Oh, I love
After
it.
the conversion
I
rate, like
I feel your pain because Canadian's not any
yeah,
better.
yeah, I was like, "What are they doing?"
We're
Yeah,
trying to show our love and support, Caden.
yeah. I mean, I do have to eat too, but yeah, no, it's so
Uh,
good. That's so
absolutely,
good.
and we have, Beard who has popped in. Matt,
Oh,
thank you
man,
so much for stopping
congratulations
by.
on your 1,000 subs.
Absolutely,
So yeah,
congrats.
it's so rad.
I love seeing booktubers grow and
Yeah,
just get all the love they deserve, so
yes.
absolutely amazing. If you
Yeah,
haven't already, folks, go check out Matt's channel.
absolutely. That is probably the main driving force for why I bother writing and publishing it. Like,
Mm,
if it was just writing, I don't mind writing for myself or anything, but actually getting it out there, like, if I didn't need to eat, I'd be giving all the stuff away for free and whatnot because I'm like, I love the fact that like I'll put some garbage out of my brain onto a piece of paper and it goes across the world. Someone reads that, even if they don't like it, right? They might
mhm.
still give feedback or whatever, or like we've made a connection somehow. And then you have social media and whatnot, and people are like all you dudes in this chat are so
Yes,
legendary. It's like people that I see all the time, and I'm terrible with names, so I'm always really bad because I'm like, oh god, I should like legit. I would like in those YouTube videos where they have like the Patreon list, and it's just like
a
forever.
stream,
Yeah,
yes.
I need to do that at the back of the book. There'll be like a 200-page book, and then 600 more pages with just like all the people who have been nice to me on the internet. Like no money or
Um,
anything, just the nice people. Because
yeah,
yeah, it's
absolutely.
community is so good. Like it's the most wholesome thing I think I've ever encountered in my life. Like legit,
Yes.
amazing.
I couldn't agree with you more. It's, one of the main reasons why I started my own channel was
Yeah,
I had tried, just trying to chat with other people in other communities, and there are so many just pure toxic ones. It's the
yeah.
internet, right?
Baking is the worst one, right?
Oh, so much competition with baking. No, I'm kidding. But, actually gaming was the worst.
Yes, yeah,
Gaming is
yeah.
the worst one.
I've actually quit gaming on anything multiplayer online without
Yeah.
unless it's like a co-op game with my mates. I just won't play
Yeah.
them. There's cheaters and there's just dickheads, and it's just like I don't need someone to be insulting my mum. My mum's lovely, like
Yes, exactly. Over a game.
Yeah,
Come on.
yeah.
And we have the pro here, the all-knowing in this matter. Lizard people instantly make any story better. Absolutely, Timothy.
Is it also terrible stereotyping if I do make them villainous in this pirate book just because they might be the only ones who could like swim around with a crocodile? I feel like I might be negatively stereotyping, so I have to
Mm.
have one that's redeemed.
You're gonna have to consult with
Yeah,
the
that's
master
it.
here.
Yep.
So, let's move on into what your writing process has been like. Do you set aside time to write? I know you said you kinda get hyper focused, but
Yeah.
do you discovery write? Do you outline? Do you do
Um,
something completely different?
I just wing it. the whole way through. I just grab the document and I just write whatever I feel like writing at the time, and it just kind of then I make some stuff that connects it. And that's what I did with
Mm.
the first the trilogy. I just wrote stuff and then put it in a big Word document or Google Doc on my phone, and then I um, put it all together, like I pieced it together. And originally, the first and second book were meant to be one book, which is kind of
Okay.
funny. People do say that the first one sort of ends abruptly and doesn't resolve the central mystery, and I'm like, yeah, that's
Oh,
because it happens in the second book. Sorry, but then
how dare you, sir?
half, yeah, like half of the second book is also like was originally part of the third book, so I was going to have two really
Right.
big fat books, and I was like, nope, let's like chop it into three because three's cool. Trilogy sounds way cooler than whatever the two word is, duology.
That was the
But
re
yeah,
interesting because I would have thought it would have been I know some authors are scared to publish chunkers because some readers find them intimidating with good
mm.
reason in cases, right? So sometimes I hear people are like, "I broke it up because it was 1,000 pages and I didn't wanna scare away people."
Oh, yeah, no, it was more for me. It was just the fact that, like we talked before the start of shipping it to New Zealand, if it was like 1,000 word book, that's like this fat. They do it by weight, man, and it's like I live like on the opposite side of the planet from where they make them. I'm sure because it
Yeah.
would cost like $30 per book. So yeah, I was like, nope, we'll split them. But then I buy all three anyway, so it's like I don't
Oh,
know why I did that. Um,
you
but
you
yeah,
had
so
to tell the story you wanted to tell.
yeah, yeah. But yeah, sorry, I got off topic again.
That's okay.
The process now though I've found, I still wing it. Like I started this pirate thing. I have the vague idea floating in my head, and
Mm.
as I write it, it creates like a lens through which I kind of like am piratey spyglassing through to the stuff I was imagining and seeing a little bit of it at a time. Um,
Okay.
and then once I've spotted that, it's like I've charted it down and it's there, and I'm like, that's now concrete and I can edit it and I'll take what I've written about and put it into like a law document or something that would say,
Okay.
okay, these people live here and they do this, or like, but it's only once I've actually discovered. I guess that's the discovery writing thing, right?
Yes.
Once I've done that, then it goes in like a Bible or whatever of stuff, which I
Yeah.
inevitably lose anyway. But and then by the third book, it's like I'm making people's eye colors up all over again. But yeah, actually, I do have a bullet pointed list of everybody's eye color, just because
Oh,
I
wow.
know that really annoys people when you get that wrong.
That's
Um,
funny.
it's just sort of discovery, and I wing it. But this is the first time I've actually ever plotted it out. So because I stole the plot of
Mm.
Transformers the movie, I just went through and I
Right.
watched the movie and was like, oh, what happens at this part? What happens at this part? What happens at this part? And I wrote them
Right.
out. And then I was like, well, I want to change that or change this and move things around. And I'm like,
Okay.
I mean, it's plagiarism, but then,
Inspiration.
yeah, that's what I'll call it. Like, I mean,
You're
who's going to make the jump from pirate rats to like Transformers, right?
there you go. They won't
Yeah,
have any clues from this video.
exactly. I mean, most people haven't even watched the original movies anyway, so it's fine. But
So
yeah, so I just kind of did that first time I've ever planned something. Kind of okay.
interesting. So I'm curious then if you've gone through both scopes or
Mm.
2 scopes of writing styles and, you've done a trilogy, you're working on your next project, what has been the most important thing you've learned about yourself as an author and going through all these different processes?
I think it's the fact that like a lot of the things that I don't like about the first book, and the series in general, but the second and third one less so, is stuff that I took on board from other people. Weirdly enough, I know it
Mm,
sounds really arrogant, and I don't mean to, but it's like what I came up with originally, and like my vision or whatever. Um, it was more it was more pure to what actually like the intention behind it and all that sort of thing. So when I got feedback
mm.
and I adjusted it and I changed things, like it's weird because some of those things are things that people then talk negatively about. They're like, "Oh, the book was great except for this, 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 and this," and I'm like, I'll send them the damn Google Docs where those things are still there. But yeah, it's
Yeah.
like, and so I think it's like trusting the fact that like I'll get there eventually, right? Like I don't.
Mhm.
I'm also kind of one of those weirdos that doesn't like. I don't finish the book first draft and then go back and reread it, rewrite it, or scrap bunches and put stuff together. Like, but the thing that I finished with Daughter of the Beast, when I finished writing it on my phone and I cut them into two, and I was like, okay, this is where it'll end. That's pretty much what you read when you read the book, minus the things that I cut out once it had come back from advanced readers, and then a few edits afterwards. But I didn't really edit it a lot afterwards because I'll write because it's on my phone and the file size is limited. per document,
Mm.
otherwise my phone will
Yes.
crash. I'll write a whole chapter, and then when I start the next chapter, I'll go back and reread that chapter, and I'll edit it so much that by the time I move on to the next one, the first one's really polished already, by my standards anyway, which is probably rubbish.
Right.
But yeah, and then as I do the next chapter, I go back and read the previous two, and I polish the first and the second, and so I do that, and then um, take things from the later and sew them back into the early bits to kind of
Mm.
make it make more sense. But I don't really change them a whole hell of a lot. So it's
No.
like, yeah, trusting that process, I think, and being okay with it because it's not what you're supposed to
Mm.
do or whatever. I think,
Well, I think supposed to do is, not the term people should abide by when they're doing a creative project, because
yeah,
ultimately you're gonna find your own way of doing it one way or another. No two authors are the same, and same as readers. No two readers are gonna be the same. But I like the idea that you take the time to
yeah,
write something, write the next part, go back, polish, and you continue that process until you come out with something that you're ready to move on with.
yeah, yeah.
That's a great attention to detail.
It makes it easier in the long run, I think, because then when I do get it edited or whatever, I don't have to worry about like them picking out things from a part of the book that I'm like, I wrote that. Like I do still get that sometimes when people will talk about a thing, and I'm like, wait, what? Oh shit, that's way back at the book too. Like I don't remember doing that. But yeah, I saw
Uh,
some comment there, and yeah, book two's ending is the ending of the original book. Like if you
okay.
sandwich these two together, just like sellotape them together, that's the original book one.
Okay. So it's
Which is
like its own
exactly that
contained
point.
arc.
Yeah, yeah, and then the third book is like the second part to that. So I really should have made a duology. Really,
Oh,
thematically, it's yeah, but
trilogy sounded better, remember?
it sounds cool. Yeah.
And, Ryan shares a top secret tip here.
Oh yes.
Characters don't have eye colors in his
Yeah.
book.
Yeah, my next thing after the rat thing will just be like worms, earthworms, no eyes. Everybody has like they're all black bats or something. They just use sonar.
That'd be great, wouldn't it? So
Yeah.
I'm gonna do a final call here for anyone in the chat who has questions for Ed. Please send them in now. There's gonna be a delay, so we're gonna chit chat until we see anything come up. But there you go. Tim again. Timothy knows trilogy
Yeah,
equals more money.
it is. It's the difference between like 70 cents from Amazon and 83 cents, I think.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Raking in the big bucks.
Yeah. Yep. With our exchange rate though, that's like $130 here. So
There you go.
yeah.
Perspective.
Oh,
And
Bill, why am I so cool?
yeah,
I
the
like I said, it's my mum. It's all her. No, it's mum and dad. They I don't know. They so when a man and a woman. No.
but
So
it's the nurturing, the support.
yeah, yeah. It's just having a general lackadaisical attitude towards literally everything. I don't take anything
Mm.
seriously. Like I'm way older than I look as well. I think the secret to that is just never take anything seriously. Never grow up, and then you never grow up. So
Right.
yeah, that's
And
my
Bill,
pro tip.
come now.
Yeah,
Um, I think that's important to, keep in mind. You're as young as you feel, right? You're as old
yeah,
as
that's
you
the
feel,
one.
you're as young as you feel. And it's important to, do what makes you happy.
Yeah, exactly right. Like, I mean, at the end of the day, I sometimes, like I'll think about, oh, okay, I could probably get a better job or I could pursue some things that will make more money or whatever.
Mm.
And I kind of arrive at the point that, like, if you strip back all of current society, whatever, if we're just like little naked monkey people with no tails walking around in the jungle, like, what do they want for really? It's like you
Yeah.
just want to be enjoying the nice sun and some shade when you need it, eat some nice things and talk to some nice other monkey people. Like, all the rest of it's like just invented. Like, it's no point to it.
Mm.
So that's kind of my weird hippie philosophy.
No, I think it's important to remember to slow down, right?
Mm.
That's a big part of life as we get caught up. Time goes by so quickly as a result. We're always so busy. How
Yeah.
often do we sit back, really relax, even with reading?
Yes. Yeah.
I've seen it so much where people are like, I'm trying to push through these books or I'm trying to read as
Yeah.
quick as I can. And really it should be about slowing down, enjoying
Well,
it.
that's the thing I think that you were saying at Christmas. It's like, what is the
Mhm.
point of having this giant TBR and this like pressure to finish a
Yeah.
Goodreads challenge of like 1,500 books or whatever, and it's like, why are you reading books again? Like,
Yes,
yeah,
exactly.
I thought you read them because you like reading them, like not like I've got to get more, got to get more. It's like, but the book was, yeah,
Yeah, it's not a
it was really good.
competition, it's not a
Exactly.
challenge. Don't compare yourself to anyone else.
No,
Just have fun.
yeah,
Yeah.
100%. We should put that on a shirt. Where's Matt
Hey,
when you need him? Matt, make a shirt. that
Matt, help. So, I do have a final question for you before we end for the
Oh,
evening. But, if you could give one piece of advice to your past self, what
hmm
would that be?
It is I think it's a Nirvana lyric and then also a Blink 182 lyric, but it's like, is it hurry up, take your time? No, take your time, then hurry up, or something like that.
Okay.
Can't remember. But basically, like the big piece of advice that I would give to myself is like, take your time, making sure everything you're doing is the best and the most like fulfilling version of what you want to
Mm.
do. But just do that sooner.
Right.
You know, like I really, really, really should have just like got these books out and finished them earlier, but not because I rushed them, but because I started earlier when I intended to start them. And I know things come from
Right.
the time that you're in it, at the time, whatever. But it's like, don't miss the opportunity. Just do it. Like, there's never too late to start writing a new book, or for anyone. Like,
Right.
it's not too late. Like, but at the same time, don't then rush it because you feel like, oh, I've started, I better finish it.
No, I
Yeah,
appreciate that because it's very easy to miss out on opportunities because
yeah,
X, Y, and Z. I'm not in
yeah,
the right headspace for it. I don't have enough time, this, that, or reason. It's important to take an opportunity when you have it, even if it
yeah,
turns into nothing. You tried,
yeah,
right? You
exactly right.
learned as you went along.
Yeah, yeah. But yeah, I wouldn't want to like, put too much pressure on myself, like with the book
Mm,
list and all that sort of stuff as well. It just takes the joy out of it. So take your
right.
time in that regard too.
Absolutely. Well, thank you so much again for joining me tonight at, well,
No worries, man.
daytime for you.
Yeah, yeah,
Hey,
it's
thank you
still
so
like
much for joining
3.
me.
Yeah, thank you for having me. It's been wonderful. And I'm so sorry I couldn't type in the chat. I would have been messing up the chat like I normally do on other people's chats.
Well, you're just gonna have to go back in that replay.
Yeah, yeah.
Catch people. But thank you everyone as well for watching. If you'd like to check out the books that Ed has written, as well as this website and various other things that we've talked about, be sure to check the links in the description below. Go check out his Twitter. He's absolutely hilarious. There's some pretty funny
Thank you.
promos there for Daughter of the Beast as well.
Oh,
So I'd recommend
yeah.
checking those out. And as always, everyone, thank you for watching and take care of yourselves.